shows in big rooms filled with people. And so it's always a bummer when, you know, people come back and are really passionate about something when we put it on the ballot and it doesn't win for these, just because no one saw it but us, or a very small group of people saw it. And we also recognize that that's not necessarily fair, and that we can't be representing quality work in town if the criteria for quality or winning means you have to have big audiences. So that's part of why we started looking at this. We surveyed the voters on the nominating and balloting processes, and they're sort of floating around. There are graphs in color. See, there's like rainbows and stuff on it. So generally, people thought that the committee is generally fair, and no one will ever agree that the ballot represents the best of Austin theater. And personally, there were things that I thought were left off the ballot last week, but we will all do that. But that generally people are unhappy with the current voting system. I think it's right in favor of larger organizations or groups with big mailing lists, and almost everyone agrees that ballots doesn't be the problem, except for one guy's mom and dad. There were two that did not think that it was that. That was great. Yes. They were very proud. A lot of lovely notes about it to us. So during balloting, just to sort of see, we sort of separated all of the BIPAC Awards votes so that we could run numbers in a handful of different scenarios. We, added them back in for the final vote, so we all voted together in the big pool of 500 and some odd votes that voted this past year. But we wanted to see what would change if we sort of handled our votes in a different way. So based on last year's voting, if only the BIPAC Award Committee voted, 57% of the winners last year would have been different, and 4 additional shows would have received awards. If the public and the BIPAC Award Council scores were averaged, so our votes sort of weighed the same as the general community's vote, then 33% of the winners would have been different, and 2 additional shows would have won awards. And so what basically that means is that if we're really, really passionate about a show that not very many people saw, our vote would tip the scale in the favor of smaller companies. Does that make sense?
Smaller attendance.
Smaller attendance, yes.
Yeah, not smaller.
Not smaller. There are no small actors, no small parts, or however that goes. Basically, it means that if we feel really, really, really passionately about something, we can change the way that things go. And also, when we looked at it, if BIPAC votes are weighted, either we vote alone or if we're weighted, then the diversity of winners actually improves significantly, which I just moved to see because I care.
What do you mean by diversity?
More people of color, more women receive awards,
Okay.
especially in like design categories. More women get recognized, more people of color get recognized. If we get committee weighted. So the reason why you've all been summoned here is because we are looking at a handful of different ways to change the way the vote goes next year, and we wanted to see what you thought about a couple of these ideas. The first option is, of course, just to leave it the same. Yep.
Could we talk about who's going to be able to vote next year first? Because that
Well, that's an option. We haven't
that's still
officially
coming.
decided.
Yeah, all right.
So the first option is just for everything to stay the same, nothing changes. Everybody chucks $1 into the bucket and they get to vote. The other is that it stays the same, but we sort of standardize who is eligible to vote, either by creating some sort of mailing list where you have to care enough that you'll deal with our spam, 7 to 12 times a year, and we'll unsubscribe, and then only the people who got that email can vote as an option. A slightly larger nightmare is attempting to put together some sort of database of people in the community, which excludes people who aren't actors or producers or affiliated, but just are tremendous supporters of theater. It would essentially mean like non-BI Pain affiliated Stephen Fays, or Larry, sorry, who isn't affiliated with another company but sees, tons of shows a year, wouldn't be part of that database unless we figure out a way to make it. Yeah, that's a headache. So some sort of standardized who is part of the community, and just to make sure that just the community voting and not, uncles and neighbors and coworkers and extended relatives. We can also change the way ballots are tallied. So there's a way that we can do it where when you log into your ballot, it's just a list of all the shows that are on the nomination list that have been nominated for something. And then you check off which shows that you saw, and then you only vote on the elements of that show of the shows that you saw. And then it's either yes or no, like best show has these nominations, and I saw best show, but I only think these two things are worth an award. So I'm just gonna say yes on those and no to the rest, and then we sort of handle it that way. So you're really only saying, yeah, I think that's worth it, or no, it's not for the shows that you saw, and you can't get to the shows you didn't see, which is another option. That will be fun. But we'll make it for you if you want that. Another way to do it is to sort of do either the dollar in the bucket gets you a vote, or some structure of a community gets to vote, and then also weigh that with the BI and Pain committee equally. That is one that we're leaning towards, is weighing the BI and Pain votes the same as the communities, and then sort of figuring out a way to make a more defined community. Is sort of what we've been leaning towards. But it also means that suddenly our votes mean a whole lot more in the communities. We thought that was weird to just sort of do without talking to people first. Or the other option that a handful of people brought up in the survey that we did was just that BI and Pain votes on winners, and that we set up some sort of people's choice categories that allow for people to write in or to vote on like production or something along those lines. There are certain elements that are open to the public only, and that the BI Council votes on the rest. So, thoughts on that? Yes.
What's the total number of people on the committee?
There are about 30 of us. And as far as I can tell, no two of us work for the same organization on a regular basis. I haven't actually double checked that. But we all come from very different backgrounds. You've got people who specialize in wigs, and people who, she just, yeah, okay, well, we ladies do this, so she's gone. But we have people from all over the community. So we try and make it as representative as possible.
Do we know how many people voted in the last?
550 something voted in the last. And the year before there were about 300. And the year before that, when it was a member organization, there were 88 votes.
I don't know if this is, but if there was a way that when you went to the show, there was a system where you, like after the show, kind of like Frontier, like Short French, right? You can vote for the shows that night. If there's a way that like you were moved to nominate someone that night, you can nominate after you leave the theater that night. Either as like a code, like you can log in to the website, you put a code in, like proof that you were there, and you can nominate something. And that way you guys can pull all these nominations together and see. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with the website you're saying, but it's a little bit. Yeah, okay, great.
Like providing a small card that goes to the program that goes to a survey on feeling or something.
Yeah, because you have to be the show to nominate for it. And then once those are all pulled together, then you guys have the final say.
Right. And what what that actually does is it opens it up to feedback from the Austin community.
Yeah, and everyone,
Anyone, that they don't even have to be a theater.
exactly, they just love working with their own.
Yeah, the other side to that would mean though that depending on how, so it's either that anyone who's nominated then in that, I'm just spitballing here. So if the community were to nominate things that they liked from the show, are you proposing that we take whoever gets a certain number of nominations? Because I would imagine that based on what we've seen in the way that people vote in this community, both in other awards and when we do sort of public awards, that everyone will definitely vote for themselves. And then their friends will vote for them. And so you wind up with everyone will get a nomination.
Right.
Everybody will get nominated. So then you run into a numbers game where then it becomes, if a show is seen by 100 people, those nominations will rise to the top, but the smaller companies that can only sit 15 people per show won't be nominated in that.
I'd just like to add, if you realize all of us volunteer for this. There's 30 people on the committee. And I happen to be retired, but do some other things and have other obligations. But most of the people work. You know, and we see shows. And it's amazing what we've done in trying to figure out different ways to adjust the system. But thinking of a card inserted in every program of every show and then tallying and put that up, that's a lot of work. And we also, I mean, we put in, the committee meets, and we usually meet for about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours every 6 weeks. You know, and all the other stuff, we communicate with each other regularly on media, you know, through our website. We keep pretty busy.
It really wouldn't be that hard.
You don't think
Yeah.
so?
The biggest problem would be
Survey month.
finding equity and getting, I mean, we have a hard enough time getting people to submit a form.
You hope they do it. You hope they do it. You don't know if they will.
Yeah.
You still would have to have proof of concept, but it's definitely an idea.
Yeah.
So
It's one that we've definitely
got
talked about.
all the permutations of it to figure out whether it's feasible or not. But it is an option.
Yeah.
The issue would be getting the company to submit all the names of potentially eligible people to us early enough that we can print this card and get it back to the theater to stuff the program by opening night. I've worked for theaters where the theater's own program is being handed out on opening night warm from the printer.
Well, if it's like an open ballot almost, you did log in,
Yeah,
and
it
you
wouldn't-
could be nominated.
It wouldn't require that it
all
be
that.
completely flooded. Yeah, it could contain just a
Okay.
link to something.
Well, the other thing that I mean, there are a number of awards now, theater awards in the community, and that's essentially what, I mean, it's not like at the point of the theater, but that's pretty much what Broadway World does. Is if you saw a show and you thought it was awesome, then you can nominate it, and then everyone votes on that. So,
We're
Yeah.
different.
yeah, we're different from that, and we need to make sure that one thing that we don't want to do is duplicate services that exist in the community already, because someone's doing it better than us. If someone's already doing a crowdsourced award better than us, then there's no reason for us to try and duplicate that. Rudy?
Couple things. One is that some of the responses, the reasons why this is happening all is again that from surveys taken of the larger community over the past few years. One is that a number of people have said that the nomination is more meaningful than the award because of the fact that so many people see the shows that those have been nominated. And so right now we're not necessarily the purpose of this meeting is not to open up the nomination process itself, but a lot of people who have said that the actual award itself is that you vote for your friend, it's a popularity contest, and so our goal here is to sort of give you these options that we already have as a committee set. These are things we feel comfortable bringing to you. And again, I think the reason why we're foregrounding the one that talks about the idea that half the vote comes from the community and half the vote comes from the main committee, and those two results are averaged together, is again because I was very surprised to see how many awards were different when we did that. And for the record, there were more times I agree with the public than I agree with the main committee. But the difference is what mattered, was the most interesting thing. And that there was a greater diversity among the winners, not simply that there were more women, more people of color, but also that more shows were represented in that blended vote. Such
and
that
the size of the organization and longevity, like brand new, like flash in the pan companies.
And as I will fully cop to admitting having read the benefits of it once upon a time. Usually, if you're nominated in more than one category, you wind up winning all of them because people are like, "Oh my God, so and so's nominated a lot. Let's all vote for this person." And whereas that didn't happen in the same way when it was the blended vote. So that's why we're particularly curious to hear how you guys think about that, because that's something of a sea change for the committee. That is to say that it's always been, we are the nominators, but we were the voters. We're seeing this, like, how would that affect you as community, your investment in the vote itself, your interest in the awards? Do you feel that that's something that would make the award more meaningful or less, or things we're particularly curious about?
Can I ask why y'all moved away from having the membership of the BIPAC? Why you moved away from the membership?
Okay.
When there was a split between, when we were with ACOT before ACOT became ACA and we went separate. When that split happened, we weren't able to offer the same kind of benefits of membership we have. Larry can speak more to that.
Okay, so, yeah, when we were part of ACOT, and I was on the nominating committee back in the 90s. All right. Then we had a membership list, and if you were a member by July 31st, you got a ballot, and the ballot didn't come out until after July 31st, so you didn't know who was on the ballot, but you got membership. But since ACA, isn't it, that split us off, and now we are our own nonprofit? Almost.
We split off.
We split off and are going. There wasn't how do you get a membership? Because we don't offer anything else except the BIPAC.
Yeah, it literally means
So-
it's a pay to vote. It's
Right.
not for membership.
So one of the things that we're considering and talking about tonight is that we have a membership. If you sign up for our newsletter by a certain date, say the middle of April or the end of April, and receive our newsletter every 6 weeks or 7 weeks after we meet, then you are a member. And so people that are not members when the ballot comes out in September, they can't vote. People can't vote on it. Only those people who are members. And that way, we stop mom and dads and uncles and aunts and nieces and nephews all voting, paying their $1 to vote. Or someone sending out on social media, "Hey, I'm nominated for this award, will you vote for me?" And getting not only members of the company, but everybody that knows that person in the whole Austin community the chance to vote for that person, which has happened.
It also
And-
sucks like having to lobby for an award. Like we don't
Yeah.
want you
Right.
guys to
Yeah,
have to
we-
do that.
That's been the biggest bummer for me, is like,
The
we all
people,
have done the hard work. You shouldn't have to hustle for an award.
so that's what we're thinking of, having a membership list start. And then those people that vote won't pay anything. We aren't talking about,
Yeah, ideally.
we're talking about
it
free
becomes a
ballots
free ballot.
with a membership. We can't do that if we just open it up to the whole community after the ballot comes out. And so it goes back to this idea that when you were ACOT, you were members,
Yeah,
and you were members before the ballot came out.
that's how I remember back in the day.
Yeah,
Just seemed to
right.
work for many years.
Right,
They
but
did,
ACOT
They
provided
went
services.
through a whole change, and they were going to not do the awards anymore. And after, 38 years, seemed a bummer to kill them.
Right.
Yeah, I did. Well, first of all, thanks for having this, because this is really nice to give us the opportunity to
See
weigh in
how the
on it.
sausage is made?
Yeah, delicious sausage. And you guys work real hard on making such a tasty casing, and I'm grateful. So I think so just to sort of recap what I've heard to make sure that I've got it and that I can contribute in a way that I think is valuable. Because Be Payne's been real good to me, and I'm grateful. Because part of the reason that it's so great to get a nomination and every now and then a win is that you can take that and turn that into grants,
Right.
and which is absolutely invaluable. And also the purpose of the Be Payne's, that every time I go to the ceremonies and stuff, it's always like, this is our award, and it's for us, and it's by us, and it's for us. And I think on the one hand, having the committee with I can see where the problem would enter. It's like, oh, well, if the committee takes over, is it still our award? And clearly, I mean, if you put it in the right terms, it certainly is, because you guys already are us, and a great representation of us. And you're us at our best, because you're less jaded. It's human nature, right? Of course I'm gonna vote for myself first. Of course I'm gonna vote. I'm going at least be tempted to vote for people that I love next, even if I thought, oh, well, no, this so-and-so maybe did a little bit, but I sure do love so-and-so. I don't blame people for that. But at the same time, obviously you want that to be discouraged, and there's only so much of that you can have. And I think it's really important to have a committee of experts that have seen everything and that are coming at it from a way that is, what's that word?
Unbiased.
Thank you. Unbiased. That's exactly what I was looking for. So split sounds real super sweet to me, and I would be totally in favor of that. And the last thing I would make, just as a suggestion, and it might not even be possible, but I wonder if you're looking at this idea of a membership, my question would be, what keeps anybody, honestly, then from going ahead and saying, Mom, Dad, whoever, go ahead and join the mailing list? So that seems.
If mom and dad are interested in getting emails about, here's theater companies that have sent us information, here's,
But it helps
here's
us
shows
to
you can go
They
see.
might go out.
As far as I'm concerned, if your mom and dad are willing to get an email every 5 weeks saying, go see a show,
Yeah,
then
it's just
awesome, you're part of a community.
Perfect. Then what I would say is,
Can I say one other thing about that, Beth, real quick? Sorry. That's one thing that Larry mentioned, was kind of a deadline. If you sign up by this point,
Yeah.
and really, once parents find out that their child has been nominated, it'd be past that deadline. So it would be hard for them to scramble and sign up for the newsletter. They really have to anticipate that their child is gonna do
At the
something.
same time, we are going to publicize this
No, it's
very much
fantastic.
before we set a deadline, so that people can get on
It's
our
really,
list
mom and
and
dad
become
really
members.
want our spam. Okay.
yeah, no,
And people,
Have a ballot too, go see a
Yeah.
show.
no, I'm all for it. It's
We're
dissemination.
fighting.
It's fantastic. And I kind of doubt anyway that parents are really the problem on this anyway.
There was one example this past year where
They just really
they
want
must
to.
have just had a huge family, family. Great, love it.
I would say,
Thanksgiving's probably fun.
I would have one suggestion that might be interesting, which is, what if, and it might be more work than it's worth, but if you are going to be looking at a more tiered system, perhaps if lighting designers could have a special vote on lighting design, and we purposefully say, please, recuse yourself or not. I mean, if it's that, much like, you know, the ACE Awards, editors vote for editors, or lighting designers vote for lighting, and you get a little extra
Yeah.
so that you know.
There's bound to be a way to do, I mean, we can we're using Survey Monkey, we can do that, not do anything we want, and that's a good idea.
Just so that it's more informed.
Because honestly, we also see who the votes are coming from, so, like, if you vote for yourself, we go, classy.
How embarrassing. I always vote for myself, and I always will. That's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to. You're supposed to, and everybody kind of knocks themselves out on that. But when it comes to others.
And be assured though that only a few people see
It's not like
the
everybody.
results of the ballot.
We also,
Should I not have- should I not have
The committee
myself
doesn't
then?
see it. The committee doesn't see it, just the few people that are receiving the ballots.
Two.
but then
In
they
the
also.
Venn diagram of doing theater and being humble, there's not much hope. If we were more humble, we would be putting ourselves out there and creating these spotlights for ourselves to do these things. I
What
think.
am I supposed to do, vote for kill?
Oh, nice.
He's not even here, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I'm live streaming.
I love that.
Anybody else have any input?
I was gonna say, I don't personally feel it's a problem having the committee have an extra vote. I feel like we get a lot of positive feedback from a variety of places. So as a company, I wouldn't mind saying, this group of people who I know I've seen a lot of things gave me this award or nominated me for this. The same way like with film festivals, you might not get into all of them, but this particular one, this special group of people chose you or nominated you. So it wouldn't feel any less weighty. You would just know, like, yeah, it was a specialized group that picked us. That doesn't mean necessarily we're not worthy in a different category, or if the group wouldn't view us differently, but I don't have any problem with the committee having greater.
The reason I was attracted to the weighted model is because we're here in this room 8 times a year, and even if I didn't see a particular show, I'm hearing the discussion when I'm not eating my delicious snacks. And I'm listening to what people are saying about how passionate they are, and at the end of the year, I remember that when I'm voting on the shows that don't necessarily include the ones that I've seen. So at the end of the year, I can say, well, this is what I remember about the shows I saw, and here are the other shows that are also nominated and did what I thought about that show that I saw. Was that as good as what people whom I talk with every 8 weeks, 8 times a year, what they said about their show. So we're a community that talks about theater and we listen to each other.
Well, and I'd also add to that, in the same way that Asaf was talking about, we have some really knowledgeable members of the improv community in the group. Like someone who's very knowledgeable about stage management, or someone who's very knowledgeable about set or design elements of a show, like that's their background. We do listen to that. So if someone says, oh my gosh, that set was great, and everybody's like, what are you talking about? That's like, here are the logical reasons why, or logical reasons why, like, we really value this set design or production design or whatever it is. There's a lot of different backgrounds that are available, and so it's not just the improv community, but it's directors, it's actors, it's design folks, it's kind of everything who are represented on the committee. And so it's got a nice spread, I guess, of expertise.
I like the idea of the weighting, but my question then is, who are those 30 people? Is it only 30 people?
Oh, no, I mean,
Like,
so the 30 people, the email that is going out introduces between 2 and 3 members of the committee every time we send something out. We won't get to everybody, because maybe we should put 5. Yeah, 5.
and then of those 30 people, how many are us? Me, black, or brown, or whatever.
We have a significant, as far as racial minorities go, let's see.
We are listed on
Matt,
our
let's
website.
see.
We have all the members of the committee listed.
Yeah, if you go to our website, you can see the entire council, and we have bios up of who we are and why we're on the
But we're
council.
also always recruiting. I mean, we can't add people in the middle of the season unless they're familiar with how we do things or can hit the ground running.
Like prior members from other years and stuff like that.
If you want to be on the committee, hit us up and get on the committee. Like, we're not unicorns, we're not magical in any way. If you'll come and see, I mean.
You don't have to be a virgin to join, damn it.
There's no special rules, we don't have like magical hats or, we're in a group of people with PhDs, some of us have PhDs, but
Yes.
but I don't have a PhD. I have a master.
And you did say that when it was more weighted, when the committee's votes were more weighted, there was more representation, it was a wider diversity of representation on the ballots than when the public was more weighted, so.
Yeah, I mean, when we put our group together, we're actually planning on having a sit down where we discuss shows that we've seen where they're talking about mental illness in shows and they're talking about race in shows. And we have people who are Asian, who are Hispanic or Black, who are have different gender identities. Like, these are conversations that we actively have. And we've said that show was great, but that was the most racist piece of trash I've ever seen, and it's not getting nominated for me. So, I mean, these are conversations that we have, and they're important to us. And so if you want to be on the committee, or there are people of color who want to be on the committee, or there are any flavor of people who want to be on the committee, just get in touch.
July is when we.
Yeah, in July. You just know that you got to see a lot of shows.
I would say that so 6 of the 30, just based on my just glance, I'm just gonna be totally wrong, and what I know about people. What I know about people.
I know.
I would say that there are 3 committee members who would identify as Asian American of some kind from some part of that vast continent. 2 who identify as Latino, and 1 who identifies as African American. And again, I absolutely, I have been. We desperately need more people of color on this committee. All right, we desperately need this, and again, and then to the point where I think that we at a certain point culled certain members earlier this year because they had not seen the eligible amount of shows, and we were able to take on more. I think that we absolutely could again, because I think it is absolutely important. I think that last year we had a really great representation among the nominees and the winners. I was really, really happy to be on stage with people like Ebony and Adrian and Fred Teatro, and that made me so damn happy. But there's no guarantee that happens again. All right. So the more people from racially diverse backgrounds with different skill sets, absolutely. I actually I pushed a lot of people to join the committee with me this year who are theater for youth, because we don't have a lot of people who had expertise in theater for youth, and we needed it. So it's like I look at this and I say to myself, like, I was bored out of my mind. This is a children's show, but then someone says to me, just like, actually, the way that this was working in terms of the cognitive development of children at this age, I'm like, I now know more, and I'm hugely grateful. We need more people to teach us to about all kinds of elements of things. So right now, that's who we have. It may not necessarily be who we wind up with by the end of the year. And then once again, we have people who did not make the required amount of viewings. We are being much more hardcore this year about saying, don't show up precisely because those people who only see very few shows see Captive, Vortex, Salvage Vanguard. Like, they see the shows and like, oh, well, they always get nominated for something, so I'll just make sure I go see them. And I'm not gonna go see the company that's seeing their first show. I'm not doing their first show. I'm not gonna go see a Spanish language show, for example. So we're committed to making sure that our members are not just, saying like, oh, well, this is a great way I can see Zach shows for free. It's like, this is the way that I can go see lots of different shows that, a lot of them, I will not finish my thought. You can see a lot of different shows, and also, And we're very cognizant also of the fact that like companies like Zach can afford to give us a lot of free shows. Companies that are doing their first show maybe not necessarily can. And so we try to be conscious of that as well.
And we still get 5 views on every one of those shows, even if you can only give us 2 comps. Or no comps, we still get 5 members to your show if you want us to see it.
People who are less than right.
We have members who will pay their way into shows without problem.
Yeah.
Basically, we're asking people on the committee to see a show a week. 6 shows every 6 weeks. Not everybody can make it, but if you're only seeing 1 show every 6 weeks, then you're not gonna be on the committee anymore. You know, we're asking people to see 1 show a week on the average and attending the meetings every 6-7 weeks that we meet on a Monday night here and then the final bloodbath at the end of the season. Those are the basic requirements, and we will be sending out information for interviews in July. And the people will take over when the new season starts. Those that we select will take over. And we'll see how many people are leaving, because there are always people who leave for different reasons and all, but we like to have a good committee. And we've had smaller amounts in the past, but we like a good 20 to 30 people.
Bottom line, when it comes to the nominations at the end of the year, you have the most people on the committee.
Yeah.
People who
To
see
get
the
the
most
people
number
that-
of shows possible, the widest range of shows possible,
Mhm.
of different genres, of different styles, children's shows, improv shows, dramas.
We usually start with about 33 people, and we've already lost 5, 6, just because they get starting to see shows and they realize that it's like, you start, your first year is tricky, because you have to figure out your life in a different way.
And
Then
we
you
make
make friends on the
exceptions too
committee.
for people that are busy in theater.
Yeah, I mean, we expect people to be involved in the community, so if you're doing a lot of shows back to back, we make we give some leeway, but there is definitely a line where it's just like, okay, you're not seeing anything, and you're not participating, so we can't just keep you on the list, we need somebody who's gonna do the work, I mean, everybody has to carry water.
Even if you're doing a show in the evening for a 4-week run,
There's
there are children's shows in the afternoon. There are Wednesday night shows, there are Monday night shows. You can catch those.
Yeah, and we have people who, like, we know that for like one of the segments, they're in a show, they're not gonna have any nights free, they're just tapped out, or like work is really busy, or life is really hard right now. And so we give them a leeway, like, well, this section was really hard for you, what about this next 6 weeks, you're gonna be able to pick up some shows. And we've had people go from being like 9 shows behind to picking up those 9 shows and then going beyond in the next segment, because they're just like, oh, well, I'm free, so I'm gonna go see 6 shows this weekend, it's happening. It does happen.
I want to plug our Google Calendar on our website again, particularly for those off night shows, Mondays or Wednesdays or industry nights or children's show. It's a easiest way for me to see when something is playing on an odd night.
It's also a great way for the community to see what we're seeing and to encourage you guys to go out and see theater beyond what you immediately know what is happening, because we want you guys to see as much as possible too, so that when you're voting on our ballot, you're voting after seeing a lot of stuff.
Also, we often see shows alone, so come sit by us.
Yeah. Please.
But don't ask us how we like it.
But, yeah. Well, I mean, and technically, we can tell you how we as individuals feel about a show, because being part of a committee doesn't necessarily mean we stop having opinions. It just doesn't mean that, like, I can think a show is awesome. It doesn't mean it's getting nominated. I'm not the boss of the committee. They don't listen.
That's a private conversation, yeah.
That's not the way she acts.
I will threaten to fight people.
Does anybody have any more questions
Yeah,
about,
I
like,
wanted to say something while I'm
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Thanks for everybody being here, and thanks for allowing everybody who wants to come be here. I just want to say that the direction that I think the world is going in 1 or 2 years' time, or very quickly, I think there's going to be more transparency, and we'll know what types of people the actors are on and off stage. Because what I've heard so far, you're only considering the shows. You're putting it into the context of how well the performance was. But as a member of the community, I want to be able to look at the actors and everyone who wins an award and who deserves recognition and feel like this is a person that I can look up to. And I think as our city, Austin, a city well known for technology and innovation, becomes more and more transparent with people's cameras and microphones, and social media, we'll know exactly what type of people are on and off the stage. And if people are doing good things, they need to be rewarded. And if people aren't doing good things, then they deserve to be reached out to by other caring members of the community and uplifted.
Well, and I think that's one of the really cool things that has happened, I think, over the last couple of years is some of the special awards that have gone out to people who maybe haven't necessarily had a show but who are like really strong supporters of the community and are really integral in either bringing forward a part of the community that hasn't really been recognized before, or allowing some spaces that haven't really been created before where people can create things. And I think that there are so many of those people who, you're exactly right, don't necessarily get the recognition that they might have from a show, but who, you know, we do see them, and as members of the committee and as the community, like that's definitely something that's important. Cool.
I really like the idea of having a system that's, you know, operating in children's theater. The Austin theater community isn't necessarily seeing our theater. But a lot of people are seeing our theater, and the kids are great. The shows are great. So, you know, we appreciate the recognition from the committee to come to see those. So I'd love to see more of a weighted system so that the people who have actually seen the shows and aren't just recognizing, oh, I know that person that was in that show over in that big theater, and recognizing them. And then on the flip side of that, you know, operating in children's theater and trying to get information to my students about what there is to see. You know, if the council or the committee can help with getting that information out there, it sounds like the Google Calendar is a good place to point them and say, go out and see more theater. It's one of the things that we're trying to do. So that was great information for me to get today.
There's a Google Calendar, and I mean, Elena is a magic marketing person. So she's been posting every Thursday as well, shows that are opening that weekend on our Facebook page with links to each of the company's Facebook pages, so you can go find more information there. In our email that we send out, it says these shows are coming, but it's not as specific as it could be. But the Google Calendar is public, so if you just click it and say follow it, you'll wind up with shows showing up in your calendar. Many shows, lots of shows. But you can hide it and go, okay, what's up this weekend? And just click it and go, wow, my goodness. And then you can come sit by me. It would be great.
I'd like to give a shout out to Michael, Nate's here, Austin Live Theater, Central Texas Live Theater.com. He's been a good friend to the community and had not just a bare bones list of what's playing, but also what's upcoming, auditions, and reviews. And we don't currently have, you know, even we don't currently have the bandwidth to show like the introductory paragraph that every show says this is what our show is about on our website. That's a good website.
That's ctxlivetheater.com.
Well, it sounds like there's general support for doing the weighted average, which is awesome because that was the easiest thing to do. And then it sounds like we'll also kind of go from the mailing list, and probably in August, we'll sort of take a snapshot of who's on the mailing list, and those will be individuals getting the ballot. Yeah?
It also sounds like this was a fairly popular forum, and so maybe we want to have
one a year or something.
At least, yeah.
I just want to check, is there anybody who would like to voice like an objection or a concern
Yeah.
at all about the two-part system? Please feel free to do so.
Yeah.
This is why we call it.
It just feels a little weird that the people who are nominating it are also the ones who have the weighted vote. And I know there's not much of a way to fix that, but it just, to me, it feels a little odd.
What about it feels odd?
The same people who are doing all the nominations are then the ones, so then, I mean, and maybe it is better because in the long run, y'all have more diversity, which is great, but it also feels like, why not just make it you guys giving out awards?
Well,
Derek, you've done a lot more studying on different awards.
I mean, it tends to be that way. And that's, I think, the biggest issue, and this may be where your question comes from, is because it hasn't been that way, BIPAC, it definitely feels way different when you start talking about changing any of that methodology. In a lot of other cities, a lot of their awards are just, like critics table awards even here in Austin are the critics, and they don't ask anybody else's opinion. And one of the goals that we're trying to accomplish with having this discussion and having this change is that there is a growing feeling, not only amongst us from analyzing the actual data, but just out in the community, that they're not fair.
Right, and I get that.
Right.
And I feel that as well.
And so really, it does seem kind of weird. I mean, essentially, that's what it would be if we decided to just, we're gonna do the nominations, we're gonna decide, we're not gonna involve the community at all. That would be us giving out the awards, right? But by splitting it, we at least give some.
Yeah, the average,
Some weight.
just the math on it is, looking at last year, if it was just us, over half of the winners would have been different. But by averaging them, it's a third that changes. And it's primarily shows that we saw that were like, oh my God, this was amazing, but nobody saw. It's really what those
I also
changes.
say this is kind of just an observation of the data, but I can tell you that the difference, the flips, were really popular people. I mean, it was really, in a lot of instances, it was a really popular, show or company, or, it was just, the skew was just, it was kind of like, this is obviously that this is different than what it would have looked like otherwise.
Rudy?
Well, I think similar to the Oscars, it's like, the skew is always towards landslide. It's always towards, like, if there's a particular heat around a company for one thing that they're doing, then all the things connected to that start getting a lot of heat, including if you have actors working with other companies at the same time, so, oh, but they're part of this community, so and they're already coming in, and again, it's like, I firmly believe that none of this is nefarious. Like, I think it's very much about, like,
It didn't sound like
no,
I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying necessarily any work, just that it comes down to the sort of, like, again, that, if you find that your friend is up for nomination, you won't likely to. I personally, like, I was on a committee 2 years ago, but not last year, and that's when a lot of this conversation started happening. And I was, at that point, people were bringing up, well, what if we just have the committee decide everything? And I was adamantly opposed, and continue to pretty much opposed to that, because I do love the feel of this being our award ceremony, and that, like, there is a community investment in it. But when I saw the results and the differences, I was just like, okay, I definitely see some validity to this. I think that, and as I said before, there were moments where I was looking just like, I think the public did better than the committee on this particular one. And other ones I didn't, and that's another reason why I really like this thought of saying this half and half system. Well, one interesting thing too is, because when it was suggested, well, maybe we should just decide. My first thought was, public will go nuts. I'm not sure I think that's a good thing to do, and I think also they'll go, oh, now it's it. And what really surprised me is that the general consensus seems to be the opposite of what I thought they would think, which is, yeah, I don't like the popularity contest. We trust you guys. So.
Okay, well, it sounds like the general consensus is weighted votes and define the community using the mailing list is okay. Aside from that, if there are members of the community that you can think of that you think should be on the BIPAC Awards Council, you would like to be part of the BIPAC Awards Council, we'll be recruiting in the summer. Larry, who took off already, is our, what is it called officially? The nominating process? No.
Recruiting and
something. It's a fancy name, but basically his job is to find people to be on our council.
Like her Facebook page, you see a lot.
Yeah. And if you have any questions, you are absolutely welcome to email me at any time. katesmash@gmail.com, like the Hulk from me.
One question, like, I know this wasn't about this necessarily when we did talk about it, but will there be like a separate session when we talk about the nominating process a little bit more in that?
I mean, you're welcome to stay, like, I mean, if people want to go, then awesome, but if you have questions, feel free to ask them.
I mean, I think part of what the gentleman was talking about earlier, it sounds like we're saying that the only way to guarantee, a diverse and fair nominating system is that we have a diverse committee. And I'm wondering if that's really true. Like, is there any sort of process or way that we can guarantee every show that is submitted to you gets a fair discussion, first of all?
Absolutely, every show that we see gets this. Every show that meets the eligibility, we all see it. Like 5 people see it and it is discussed. Every single show that we see is, we say, who saw it? Yeah.
Every show is discussed the equal amount.
that's why we spend 4 hours here every Monday, every 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's it. I will say that if anything, I feel like the ones that get to talk about the most are the ones where you have like disagreements, those that people overall is like, nobody seems to really like that one. Those get quickly, and the ones people was like, oh my God, that was amazing. But like when you get people with various opinions, it's not that there's a specific time limit that we need to cover for each thing. But yeah, but each one does get addressed.
Well, aside from requiring that 5 people see every show, I mean, is there sort of like a process or some ways that the same people don't see the same, 5 shows every weekend?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, if you have person, A and B, they're not gonna go watch the same shows.
So there's not like a cohort who's like rallying.
Right. So that, well, I guess what needs to happen is every committee member needs to see a diverse amount of shows.
Yeah, and we do look at what everybody's seeing, and if one is there, if they're not seeing enough shows, that is brought up to them, and if they're constantly picking the popular companies in town, then that is also discussed.
Yeah.
Like, we want to make sure, like, if people are never seeing a children's show, if people are never going to improv, like, that does get brought up.
Yeah.
It's largely self-police. I take a look pretty good. It's largely self-police.
I will say though, I mean, you kind of,
of.
there are certain people like the improv shows and children's shows, like you kind of want those people who know about those shows to go to those shows. So you kind of, you want to stop at your improv show so he can help us, But yeah, I mean, and I do think that the people who know children's theater do tend to go to a lot of children's theater because that's what we know and that's what.
Or want to avoid children's theater.
Right. I mean, and so there are some people who, like, if you don't have kids, it is weird to go to a children's show without kids.
Totally normal.
Yeah, I'm a normal person.
I want to say it.
I guess my question is, how do we ensure that 5 people that went to the show that's out? Like, is there a list that you can say, okay, we're emailing everyone on the committee, 3 people have seen this show needs 2 more people?
We do.
So if the show is
That's my
closing,
job
we
sometimes.
take a survey and we say, I need 4 more people at this show, or this show's closing, this needs to happen.
We put into it, we it's on Facebook, it's a private group that we have, and every single week we say we need 3 more, who's gonna commit to it, people. I mean, within 15 minutes usually we.
Or if somebody's
But I will
reserved a
also
ticket
say-
for a show but hasn't said that they've seen it, we're like, did you reserve? Do you have a ticket? Are you ready to go? Do we need somebody to step in and get a ticket and go? Because we're committed to have 5 people see
I'll
every show.
also say though that this year so far, probably we're averaging
This year's been really great with viewership.
We're really not skipping the bottom here, and that's, it's better than it has been, you know, last year it was 5. This year is probably the average, probably closer to 8. And we are keeping an internal list. We know everybody who sees, every one of us who sees which shows. I will say for myself, in the last couple of months, I've looked forward to the next 6 weeks, and I will say, I'll see some dramas, some comedies, 1 children, and 1 improv. And, you know, specifically, so I can make sure I see enough of different things.
And I think that too, the fact that we are soliciting people, you know, we need to, that is almost like kind of a built-in diversity. It forces you to, you know, oh, we need a new here, I'm not necessarily choosing it. So it kind of does create this cross pattern where you're just seeing what needs to be seen. And, you know, law of averages says that you're going to see a diverse group.
Yeah, sometimes I'll look at the list, I have an extra day on a weekend, and I'll see what it doesn't have very many views, and I'll pick that one and add that to my view.
And I think it is the truth that the more people who see your show, the greater the diversity of opinion on it, is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, it's a thing where, again, it's that second year being on here, that if you have that even if it was just those 5 people, if those 5 people are all like, wow, we loved it, that's usually important. But if the 6th person is the one who says, eh, and if I have learned anything over the past couple of years doing this, is that people can see the same show on the same night and walk out with improvements about it. So just that everybody knows, it's not necessarily a case that the more views you have, the more likely you are to be nominated, or the more likely you are to get to people you can now vote on shows you can necessarily see. When you have those people who are like, we all saw this, we thought this person did an incredible performance. If you have them on your ballot, leave them on there. I've seen those people move on when performers or designers or shows that had a large viewership did not, precisely because of a unified, passionate advocacy versus a large group of people having a wide range of opinions.
One of the advantages that we have is that it's not that one person walks out with an opinion. All of that's not true. Everyone walks out with an opinion. We get here and we talk about it though, and I mean, I've said a few times that we become champions for certain things. Like when you see the number of shows that we see, there are definitely shows that speak to you and performances that speak to you and designs that speak to you more than others. But there are 30 of us. So as we get together and we talk about things, I don't have to see a show. Like there are members of the committee that saw 100 Heartbreaks last year. I didn't see it, but they loved that show. And they talked about that show with so much passion that I didn't have to see the show because I know what they like. We've talked about all the shows we've seen in common. So I know what their opinions are about theater. We have similar opinions on a handful of things. So if they're going to go to bat for a show, I'll back them on that. And that show wound up getting on the ballot, even though, I mean, I think just 5 people went to see it, and it was a brand new company. I don't think they've done anything since.
Is their only show, it was in a bar in East Austin,
Yeah.
which
That
wasn't
was
the
the
easiest
Harlem.
place to find.
Yeah.
It was way east.
Yeah.
One other thing that I'll say that I think I've heard people kind of voice this, not really concern, but just curiosity about the way our process works. And we already mentioned it once that if you're involved in any way in a show, you're excused. You know, this is the room we meet in, and you have to go outside and you're out. You don't come back in until we're completely done discussing that show. The other thing, everybody on this committee, you know, we've got 25, 30 people on this committee, and I would venture to say that the majority of us may have known of each other or knew each other a little bit, but a lot of times we met each other here. So we didn't know each other before. And what I'm getting at is that the way this system is set up and the way this committee is set up, there is virtually zero chance of furthering an agenda on any discussion. There's just not, because it's individual votes by individual people. There's no opportunity to collude, and we don't, you know, we come from such different areas, and we're not just like this group that all ran a theater company and now run the council. It's just not like that.
Well, I'd also add to that, like, we all love theater, and we all love Austin theater and improv and like the performances that go on. And the whole point of the committee is to recognize excellence. And so we want every single show that we see to be excellent. We want every performance that we see to be excellent. We want every single element of every show we see to be excellent. And being able to recognize that and talk about it is really, really awesome. But it's not like, I mean, before I was on the committee, I was like, oh my gosh, they've got to just sit around and talk about how terrible everything is or whatever. But it's not about that at all. And
We don't have time for that.
We do not.
very true.
Yeah.
And so it's just from
Yeah.
like, this is my first year on the committee, and it's been really, really nice to see that it really is about like, no, I really believe that this was a really excellent showing of this, or an excellent performance by this, or wow, what a fabulous original script.
Or let's make a new category because we've seen so many
Yep, awesome.
awesome of this.
We have 3 categories we're considering adding, so we're seeing what pops up on the short list, and we'll decide at the end of the year whether it's worth a new category.
And we've added so many new categories in the time that I've been on there: puppetry, media design. What else? I mean, just getting out away from
Improv in general.
Yeah, we paid $75 for, shall I say it, what looked like
Lozenge.
The throat
lozenge. Yes,
lozenge.
a lozenge, but $75, we can only have so many of those, and we've been able to expand that by recognizing more things. What I'd like to say is, I was speaking to one of our newer members after his first meeting, and he said, oh my God, you know, I thought some things were excellent, and you know, I got voted down, and you know, people didn't agree with me, and I put it on our Facebook, and it's like, well, we're there panning. We're panning through a lot of sand and in the river, and each grain may look like it's shiny, but we get down to the flecks of gold. We look through a lot, we pick out the best, and at the end of the year, we have the absolute very best that we're picking from. And you know, so in some years, we have added so many best supporting actresses, and throughout the whole year, at the end, we've got a huge list that we've got to get down. So we may only have a few in every meeting that we add, but the ones we do add come to the end of the year, and they're so hard to pick between because they're all so very good.
I just wanted to guarantee to you that, speaking personally, I think many other people would echo this as well. I put a lot of hours into this, between the shows that I see, the meetings that we do, doing extra outreach like this, the collaborations via media and conversations, the bloodbath at the end, and sitting in a room for 14 hours. Believe me, that is a hard thing to do, sit in a room with the same group of people for 14 hours.
Theater people at that.
The only way to justify all those hours for me is to do this right. And I think that's the same for all of us. And doing this right means seeing the widest variety, seeing
And seeing
everything
everything,
that
like,
pops in.
I was heartbroken to find out that that we weren't seeing Asian American shows because their shows were in like Vietnamese and it wasn't subtitled. But that, like, when I discovered that there's like a whole other theater community that we're not representing at all, and I don't know how we can represent them. Like, we put so much time into this and are so passionate about making sure that the work that we do means something, and it only means something if it means something to the community. Because like the community could decide tomorrow that Beyond Pain is crap, and it is, because if you decide it is, then it is.
You don't need an award to know you're great. That's what they all need to know. Well, the cool thing is that I can vote. I can not vote. It's not really voting against, but I can not vote for my friends for being outstanding because they'll never know I didn't vote for them. Because it's anonymous. It's, you know, it's.
Yeah. Also individually, none of us can wait a vote. Like, even if we had an agenda, there's no way for any of us individually.
I got really good friends in theater, and they'll never know that I didn't vote for that.
Direction.
Are there any other questions?
Yes,
Yes.
very, very simple. You're talking about weighting. Does that mean 50%, 50%?
Yes.
That was one of my understandings, just
Yeah.
to make sure.
Are you still required to vote only for something that you've seen?
The BI campaign committee?
No, wait, at the end of the year.
Until the bloodbath.
That's why it takes 50 hours.
Are you talking about the blood, wait, yeah, were you talking about the bloodbath or the ballot?
So the final ballot, we all want agreement on that, because now we're talking about just 5 shows for that show. So at that point, we want everybody on the committee
So
to
then,
talk
so
through it.
then on the final ballot, everyone watches it?
Everybody watches everything, we all discuss it
You
to
don't-
agree on. Let's, Kate.
Yeah, so your question is it that, so when, you mean when BI campaign votes? Yeah, I mean, that's what I think.
Nominations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the nominations,
I only voted for stuff I saw.
yeah. We hold ourselves,
I guess, that's not entirely, you're referring to the actual ballot that goes out to the community as well, or to
How we
the.
narrow down to nominations and how we vote to
yeah,
nominate,
So-
everybody's involved in those. There's sometimes, that I will vote positively on a show that I did not see because there was enough discussion about it, that I understood and know that show.
Are you talking about the blood?
and that's what makes the nomination.
And how that final nominations list is created.
And we call it the bloodbath, but that's not.
It's just because it takes a long time.
Really intense. And it is, but maybe blood is not the right.
I offered to fight people on at least 3 occasions.
I know, I just.
Will there ever be an option for the nominated people to submit like their archival video or whatever, so that everyone?
That would be awesome.
We've talked a little bit about
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we've definitely discussed, the more video that's available for the community and everything, like what would be totally amazing is if we had like clips from all of the nominees that the companies provide, where people can like have like a 4-year consideration. I mean, that would be amazing. That'd be great. I don't know how to do that.
That's
That'd be
something
great.
Could hire Turtle to
we
Films
wouldn't
to,
necessarily
just kidding.
implement as part of the voting process until every company we
Yeah.
represent would be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
away. That's something that I would hate to think, and we're also, we've had a lot of talk about like, well, what happens if you see something on video, and it's just like, well, the live experience is the live experience.
Right.
And so we don't want to, and again, that favors companies who have access to the money to get good quality films up
Right.
there and put them online at their work. So that's really what I want to do.
So we've used, as far as like, if somebody has a video available of their performance, we don't use that as a counted view for us. But if people want to use that as a way to kind of look and see what that show is about and get greater knowledge of it, that's welcome. We totally love that. As far as like submitting things for your consideration, we've also considered having people, designers submit their portfolio or their tech sheets of things that they put together, like this is the design I made and this is how it ended up. It's for comparisons, just as a broader way to look at these designs rather than just what we see when we walk into the room. Because sometimes, there are details and there are things, there's prep work that's involved with these design aspects that we don't get to see. And that's part of the process. So there are definitely things that we're looking at as far as like people needing to submit stuff. And right now, the way we're set up, we're not equipped to handle that. And we feel like it would be an unfair advantage to people who could submit that way, because it's not across the board, every company could do that.
Any other questions?
Do y'all get comped to see the shows?
Sometimes, most of the time, yeah. Otherwise, it would be really
Nice.
expensive.
We could afford it over.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would also, I mean, if it weren't, we're so grateful for the Cubs, because if it weren't for those, then it would mean that the only people who could be on the campaign would be the independently wealthy. Because I saw like $60 worth of shows.
Yeah, I saw 68 shows last year.
Yeah.
Like, I can't afford.
Times 15 would be possible.
Some of those are not.
Oh, yeah,
Some of them are not.
Some of them are,
I've
yes.
had various season tickets in previous years, and I've also, in years I've had made donations at the end of the year, have my company matches. The way it's
Thank you, yeah.
But we do appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming by. If you have other questions, absolutely send me an email. I will answer them.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right,